Alright, this is the month of May 2018. It is a Sunday. I wanted to talk about I don't know if it's a basic outline or a detailed outline of my voice to skull rigs. I don't just get the voice to skull. I have a medusa machinery that is attached to my cardiac system. In this whole mind control system, they really they play out rigs, and rigs are verbal rigs from the mind handlers, and they're designed to suck out the cardiac energy of the targeted person, like myself. And when they suck out that cardiac energy, I end up losing memory problem. I end up having memory problems and health strength. My health isn't very strong then. Anyways, I forgot. I wish I could elaborate. One of the things is I've lost the ability to elaborate on the details of this voice to skull and mind control targeting system. They use the medusa machineries connected to my cardiac system and auditory system. So much stuff I hear, and so much stuff that's being rigged on me is frayed. With frayed, what happens when so much stuff is frayed, you have parallel psychologies. It parallels psychology, parallels the psychologies. It parallels one word with three parallel meanings. It sensitized the target's neurons terribly, whereas most other people wouldn't be sensitized. In the sensitizedness, it's a criminal cartel that sucks out meanings for itself. And the word criminal cartel is actually a fancy name for this hideous terrestrial tower watch black goo terrestriality. And this is like a basic characteristic from my experience and from my observation, in which I have had encounters with terrestriality. Terrestriality will look like humans, but there will always be something odd about them. A lot of terrestriality, and it's from South Asia and the indigenous, a lot of them will be black goo. Their skin, the denseness of their skin will be black goo based, and almost all terrestriality, most terrestriality will have levels of frequencies that would be accompanied with them. There will be denseness of frequencies. If they're demonic, you will sense their demonic terror inside you. People will say there's the tall terrestrials, there's the short terrestrials. The way I have seen, a lot of the tall terrestrials can be at most 7 feet tall, 9 feet tall. And the short terrestrials, the most I have seen, are 3 feet tall and 4 feet tall. Let's see. Another thing, let's see. Anyways, the basic outline for me is, when I first got targeted, I was targeted at San Francisco State University. I spent a lot of time at the science department on my last semester. Most of my classes were in the science department. I had a few classes that were in statistics and at humanities. And I had class theater in all of my classrooms, and I had hallway theater, and I had quad theater, and I had cafeteria theater. Anyways, a lot of my classmates, my professors and TAs, they knew they were part of a theater, I think. I'm pretty sure they did, because they did put out a theater. When they were present in the theater in my presence, my mind handlers, I didn't know I had mind handlers then. I didn't know what silent telepathy was, and I certainly didn't know what voice to skull was. I certainly didn't know what subliminals were. I didn't know that much about mind control at all. The only thing I can tell you is that I sensed different levels of frequencies and energies. That's how much I knew. Anyways, my professors, my TAs, and my classmates, they made implies, and those implies were turned into notions by my mind handlers in the year of 2010. The implies at the time certainly caused, they made implies and impressions. And sure, they made impressions on my perception, and they probably made impressions on themselves also. The thing is, what I realized around 2010 and afterwards, but when I realized my mind handlers, when I realized how demonic my mind handlers were, I realized that I was an outcast in the theater of it, in the classroom theater, hallway theater, quad theater. I was an outcast. I was treated as an outcast. I should have been treated with kindness. What I realized, that if they had treated me with kindness, they would have been interpreted. They would have been interpreted for good. That's my suspicions. And it could have done a lot of good. Let's see. There was. Anyway, since I was an outcast, there were implies and impressions, and those implies and impressions were then notions and potions to my mind handlers in the year of 2010, because my cardiac system and my mind was all hijacked. And most of you know that the frequency machineries are very sophisticated. And the mind handlers, they're known as the intellectual barbarians. The intellectual barbarians are operating on a horrendous level of hideous psychologies. You have the satanic CULTs, you have the black cobra hoodlums, and you have the indigenous of nations, you have the Asian insectoids. These are all from that satanic CULTs. These are all Catholic satanic terrestrialities or mind handlers. They're also polytheistic. The polytheistic is a big tree of the Catholic system. So you have the satanic polytheistic terrestriality that is very hideous, and it doesn't like Islam. It doesn't like that one God. It doesn't like the medieval godness, and therefore it likes to collect the medieval frequencies. I can't really go into its one thing. The only way for me to describe its psychology is that it has a snake psychology. They have a snake psychology, and of course, if I go into the description of its terrestriality, it's extensive, and it's not something most people can believe very easily. Though I think they should. I think humanity needs to realize terrestriality. We cannot constantly live in this earth existence, in this Catholic system, being in denial of terrestriality. It just isn't right. Anyways, at the time, I didn't know they were using hypnosis and trance on me. There's definitely cardiac control now. Nowadays, I definitely realize it when they tell me how they're turning my cardiac system. They pretty much use their, it isn't difficult for them to just click my cardiac system on and off. It's like that. And it's only within the last 2 to 3 years that I realized how I'm being frequency signal. When they use the frequency signals, I can sense the frequency signal in the center of my brain. And I didn't have that much before, but I know I was hypnotized. I didn't know if I was hypnotized in the public schools, in my high school, or in the university. I don't really have memories of it from my college years, but anyways, I know now when I'm being tranced, and when I'm being hypnotized. I definitely experienced the astral hacking. I'm a terrible victim of astral hacking, neural monitor, and voice to skull. I am probably the only person that experiences the violent verbal frequencies of the black cobra hoodlums. And the black cobra hoodlums are actually from a terrestrial realm. I don't know which planet these hoodlum terrestriality comes from. We use the word just hoodlum. I'm talking in a very mild frequency. But the verbology and the harassment and torture I experience in my voice to skull is of violent frequencies. It's violent frequencies, it's demonic frequencies, it's hideous frequencies, it's dark frequencies, it's unethical frequencies, it's criminal frequencies. You know, you have to experience it yourself to know how wrong and how demonic the system is, the capitalist system is, and how demonic the Catholic system is. You know, the Catholic system has a horrendous beast that it shouldn't be afraid to expose, because to expose it is to access its powers. You know, it's to access its powers and give it to humanity. That's been my experience. There have been modulations of intensities of word frequencies and verbologies that were force carried out in my cardiac system. It's induction. They cause induction in my cardiac system to my vocals and my thoughts. Most of you will say this is very ridiculous. What I have are 6 mind handlers. I have a black female mind handler that is a black cobra buffalo type, and then I have the black cobra snake. Then I have the white female blonde snake, and they're also like dog types. Then I have the Mohican pit bull. Then there's a bunch of other satanic insectoid terrestrialities that are indigenous. They're snake-like, and I think they came from San Francisco. I have encountered them to my visits to San Francisco, between San Francisco, Palo Alto, and Contra Costa County, the state of California. I live in California. Anyways, they used implies and impressions from the quad theater, classroom theater, hallway theater of San Francisco State University as notions. Those notions then became, they were rigged. In the rigs, they cause blames. They cause blames when they blame someone of career or power. When they blame the power system, they can claim the human being. They wanted to claim me, and in this case, I'm only going to say myself, though they were claiming they were claiming my family, my siblings, my nephews, and my community, and a lot of other people, you know, that they wanted to target. So they would blame a power source so they could claim the human energies. The human energies were important. There are so many reasons you could give to say why the human energies were important. And it's not just because the human energies are important. Another element to this is that there is a realm, a frequency realm that is South American, that is Catholic and polytheistic. It is a hideous realm. It is a hideous realm in which they burn the souls of human beings, and they say that they burn those souls into ashes. When you're turning souls into ashes, there's a lot of pain involved. There's a lot of human pain and human cries and a lot of human torture in that. A lot of times when this mind control system, the human torture, the human pain, and the human cry is covered up by grin, where the demon will say, keep smiling. You know, they will cover it, the demonic bitch grin, and the demonic grin is an energy bubble. The demonic persona and the bitch behavior persona, it is an energy bubble that covers up the cry, the original soul energy, from speaking out in God's voice, in the human voice, as human voice would protect itself and how a human voice would defend itself. This frequency realm in which they turn souls into ashes, the terrestriality of it is dense skin. The dense skin is black goo skin if it's a dark terrestrial. I forgot where I was going. There was a very important point I needed to make. They are composite terrestrialities in this demonic realm. They can also turn to dense white skin. in which they call themselves the hard white with an S. There's also between them, they can turn, because they are composite frequencies. In the composite frequencies, it has a hard white frequency facet. It has a brown Mohican frequency facet. It has an indigenous insectoid frequency facet. It has a black cobra snake frequency facet. These are demonic frequencies. These are hideous, heavy, violent frequencies that can terrorize the hell out of the human grace, out of the human frequency grace, out of the normal human frequencies of human beings. When human beings are entrapped in these demonic beings, they are turning this normal human frequency into ashes. In the process of it, there is a lot of human cry. This human cry is unheard to human beings, but it is definitely experienced in the process of it, in which the composite terrestriality itself causes it, and they call it the smoking, heating. In this process, when they heat a target, like say for criminalities, if they wanna for criminalities, they will make the target's original original frequencies will be displaced because you have these hideous demonic terrestrialities that are heating the target with their heat frequencies. In the process of its heat frequencies, it can cause they will start inducting their heat in the cardiac system, from the cardiac system to the vocals and their thoughts, and their thoughts will be demonic and criminal, so they will cause forced speech and a lot of other things. This is just an example of making sense of this. So you have blames and claims to target do-gooders for evil behavior, which is known as cause stalking. Then what we have is, in the process of blames and claims, because they don't want the target to escape, or because they don't want the target to escape, they don't want the target to recover, they don't want the target to heal and overcome, so they cause constant deceits. Constant deceits are constant to most people known as gaslighting, is the displacement of things, and the deceitful behavior is such, it's a psychopathic behavior in which, the target is being targeted for abuse. It's a narcissistic behavior is being used so that the target is being abused. In the process of deceits and receipts, you can't really do deceits and receipts unless you have the demonic terrestrial will implant its demonic energy sensor in the target and its source player. In this case, that's me, and I've had an example. One of the examples that I've had in this is that I can, for instance, I had a business with an outside person. The outside person itself was a gang stalker, was a voodoo gang stalker itself, though he was covering it up. Then what happened is, in the transaction that I had with them, they didn't want to give me a receipt, and I said, okay, so just leave it be. So I went home, and because the demonic terrestrial had its sensor in me, the demonic bitch witch came out as Claudia in my neural system as a hologram. Claudia really is a demonic bitch. She controls my utilities, she controls my bills, she controls my mind, she dog watches me, she bitch watches me from my neural system, okay? So she appears as a hologram, and she can verbal any human being that is within my surrounding. And the important human being in my surrounding said that they want a receipt. So I had to go back and I had to ask for a receipt. In the process, when I asked for the receipt, the demonic snake, the voodoo snake, became like a tower watch voice both to my mind and to the other voodoo gang stalker. You know that you have to have the receipt, because this voodoo snake that is like a tower watch anon type, he wanted the receipt so that he could constantly cause, so that he could blame and target for deceitful behavior. The deceitful behavior is narcissism, it's pedophilia, it's philias, it's sexual philias, it's neural sexual philias in which they get to eat the cardiac energy of the targeted human beings, of the soul energies. In this case, they are after ancestries. They want to burn out the ancestries. They're using the ancestry energy because they're combating the system in which they want to claim to have an empire. Do you know what I mean? That's the extensive elaboration of this hideous terrestrial. The terrestrial is an indigenous terrestrial, a Catholic terrestrial from South America to the 50 states of America. That's how much I know this. The name of this terrestrial in my neural system is Dis, known as Dis. Let's see. Causes dramas and traumas. Most of us can't really do dramas. If you're a targeted person, if you're a constant target of a terrestrial like this or his and witches and bitches, they will impose dramas because they're using the target can be used as a gang stalker, even though a humanoid gang stalker is just as much a slave. Because the humanoid gang stalker is usually tortured and manipulated in its induction of its energy. So let's see, what was I going with this? So they can cause dramas on the person. I myself, when I can sense the dramas are meant to cause the traumas. Psychopathic behavior. There's no middle ground between the high frequency and the low frequency. I can elaborate a lot of this, but I don't know if it's good for me to elaborate this. Pretty much, if we didn't have these psychopathic beings that had these frequency capabilities directly to our cardiac system, there's no way that we would ever need a criminal system. In the criminal system, there wouldn't be so many prisoners. What I have learned is that they seem to be attracting a lot of the meek through the dramas, the traumas, and let's see, the deceits and receipts, and the frequency machineries makes this possible for them to draw the meek to the criminal system. And when the criminal system, they eat the meek. They eat the cardiac energy of the meek, the soul energy of the meek, so they could turn the meek into a demonic evil vessel. Let's see. So the dramas and traumas makes it possible to demon possession, assaults, rituals, criminal behavior, and the worst being cannibalism and animalism. These beings really say that to me in my neural system, cannibalism and animalism. And I tell them, do you know, I remember how I was first targeted in 2002 at a state university hallway. Do you know, I don't know why the professors and the higher career departments didn't know that a lot of our humans are being targeted by animals and cannibals. A lot of the indigenous terrestriality that comes to my neural system and that has access to my that can frequency to my neural system, they don't. It's a female. It's a black goo female that is of Filipino appearance, and she has a hideous ideology. They call themselves the hideous ideology, and she says that she's a cannibal and she's an animal, and that's about as much I'm gonna say. It's a torture program for which they target the meek too. They eat the illumination of human being. It's all about the frequencies of the illuminating frequencies of a human being that they eat. And when they eat the illuminating frequencies of a human being, the human being becomes an empty vessel, in that they can turn into a demonic vessel, a criminal vessel, a demon vessel, a parasitic vessel. And they carry out thousands of demonic psychological mechanisms. Let's see what else. Another thing is the reason there is so many, like when I was in Afghanistan, we didn't have that many crippled people in Afghanistan, and we didn't have that many retarded people in Afghanistan either. The percentage was very low compared to the Catholic system. The Catholic system, what you have are these beings, whether you call it witches, terrestrialities. I really believe that we should be using the word terrestriality as an everyday word. And excuse me for my vocabulary, because based on my mind control, I'm limited to my vocabulary. You have a lot of the composite skin terrestriality that are Catholic. They're a demonic Catholic. They're the demonic facet of the Catholic system. They're from the beast system of the Catholic system. And they use a lot of these frequency capability that can directly torture a human being directly inside their cardiac system, their brain frequency system, with their hideous psychological mechanisms or their Pavlov's mechanisms to cause crippled behavior, crippled speech. They say paraplegic. There's also a lot of these neurological crippling. A lot of neurological crippling, retardedness. The extreme prejudices isn't a prejudice, it's a psychological demonic mechanism that is in itself a disease. And it is the extreme prejudice means that there is no middle ground. When you don't give human beings a middle ground, obviously a human being, it's very easy to say that from the high frequency a human being can fall down. But what happens in the low frequencies is that they target the human being in the low frequencies to fall down as if they were falling down from the high frequencies. I hope this isn't confusing. I know this might be confusing. A lot of the terrestrial behavior is snake behavior, dog behavior, pit bull behavior. There's a lot of Mohican pit bull behavior. They use psychological bullying through the neural rigs to cripple the behavior, to cripple the neurological system. Our corporate system uses this. They do a lot of race baiting. The race baiting feeds the demonic terrestrial of the Catholic system. It keeps the demonic beast of the Catholic system as an imperial force of power, not just on the Americas, continental Americas, but also on the global system. That's why, like the Middle East, the wars in the Middle East are very much from the Catholic beast, caused by the Catholic beast. Because there's a lot of medieval energy in the Middle East, and they have to constantly attack that medieval energy. They don't want that medieval energy to emerge. And that's true for all the Middle Easterners and Czech republics and West Asia and Indo-Asia. So let's see, what you have is, if you go to the corporate system, there's a lot. We say there's equality, but there's no equality when you look at the frequencies as to what kind of frequencies a human being is forced to carry with them. Then you got race baiting, and then you have, because you have the Catholic beast, the Catholic beast is always baby baiting, which means targeting to force births. Most of you said that's unthinkable. We want less of a population. Now, this country, it's not about depopulation. It's a horrendous amount of unthinkable population. Unthinkable population, the beast vision of a population. What you have a depopulation on is on the medieval DNA. There is a depopulation of the medieval DNA. People who possess medieval DNA. There's a depopulation on the morphogenics of humanity. You have a horrendous. I truly wish I could elaborate on the explanation and the Tower Watch concept of morphogenics. There is the morphogenics of countries like West Asia, Indo-Asia, Islamic Caucasia. You have the Czech Republic countries. You have even Europe itself are suffering on the level of morphogenics. You have the power empire of the Catholic system and the South Asian, the demonic South Asia, and its power of morphogenics and its power of demonic energy, and the empire system of the indigenous of nations. In the indigenous of nations, you have a demonic terrestriality that is a hideous tower. And it carries out rigs in my mind night and day. It forces my mind to experience a lot of snake frequencies. And I asked myself, these are heavy frequencies, these are snake frequencies.